The police officer's laughter echoed through the crowded downtown Chicago park as he pointed at Jackson. "Look at this crying gay teen, thinking he can hold hands with another guy in public like it's normal," he sneered, his badge glinting under the afternoon sun while a small crowd gathered, phones already recording. Jackson's cheeks burned with humiliation, tears streaking his face as he tried to pull away from the officer's grip on his shoulder, his heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst. At 22, fresh out of college and still figuring out how to stand tall in his own skin, Jackson had only wanted a quiet walk after a rough day at his entry-level marketing job. Now, this stranger in uniform was turning his life into a spectacle, the words "fairy" and "disgusting" ringing in his ears like slaps. Just as the officer raised his voice for another jab, a deep, authoritative tone cut through the noise. "Stand down, Officer Ramirez." Now, the command was calm but carried the weight of steel. Christopher strode forward from the path, his tailored suit and commanding presence making the crowd part instinctively. At 38, the city's top police commissioner had a reputation for fairness that commanded respect across every precinct. But today his dark eyes locked onto the younger man with something far more personal. Ramirez's smirk vanished instantly, his hand dropping from Jackson's shoulder as if burned. "Commissioner? Sir, I was just—" Christopher's raised hand silenced him mid-sentence. "You were just embarrassing the department and violating every policy on public conduct. Report to my office at 6 sharp. Dismissed." The officer slunk away, muttering under his breath, while the onlookers dispersed, whispers fading into the breeze. Jackson stood frozen, wiping his eyes, unable to meet Christopher's gaze. They had been together secretly for 8 months, stolen moments in Christopher's downtown apartment, late-night talks that made Jackson feel seen for the first time. But in public, they were strangers. Christopher's career demanded it, and Jackson understood the risk. "You okay?" Christopher asked quietly once they were alone on the path, his voice softening in a way only Jackson knew. Jackson nodded, though his voice cracked. "I hate this, feeling like I have to hide who I am every second." Christopher glanced around, then gently touched his arm, the brief contact sending warmth through Jackson's chest. "Come on. Let's get you out of here." They walked in silence toward Christopher's car parked blocks away, the weight of the afternoon pressing down like a storm cloud that refused to break. That evening in Christopher's sleek Lincoln Park condo, the city lights twinkling beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, Jackson finally let the tears fall freely. Christopher pulled him into a hug, strong arms wrapping around him without hesitation. "You didn't deserve that. No one does." Jackson buried his face in Christopher's shoulder, inhaling the familiar scent of cedar cologne. "Why does it always feel like the world is waiting to knock me down? My parents still think I'm just confused after I came out last year. And now this." Christopher listened, his hand rubbing slow circles on Jackson's back, offering the steady presence that had become Jackson's anchor. They had met at a charity gala for LGBTQ youth support, Christopher there in his official capacity, Jackson volunteering as a recent grad. A conversation over coffee had turned into hours of talking, then something deeper neither had planned. But the secrecy gnawed at Jackson more each day. As night deepened, Christopher made them tea, the simple ritual grounding them both. "I shut him down because it was wrong, Jackson. Not just because of us." Yet Jackson could see the flicker of worry in Christopher's eyes. The career he had built from beat cop to commissioner could crumble if their relationship leaked. They sat on the couch, shoulders touching, talking until the city quieted. Jackson felt a spark of hope amid the shame. Maybe one day they wouldn't have to hide. But as he drifted to sleep in the guest room, always the guest room to keep up appearances, he wondered how much longer he could bear the weight. The incident in the park wasn't just a bad afternoon. It was a mirror reflecting every fear he carried about loving a man in a world that still judged so harshly. Christopher, alone in his own bed, stared at the ceiling, the image of Jackson's tears burning behind his eyelids. He had chosen this life of service, but protecting the man he loved might force choices he wasn't ready to face. The night stretched long, heavy with unspoken promises and the quiet fear that love this real could demand sacrifices neither had anticipated. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the condo windows as Jackson woke to the smell of fresh coffee. Christopher was already dressed for the office, tie perfectly knotted, but his smile when Jackson shuffled into the kitchen was genuine. "Sleep any better?" he asked, sliding a mug across the counter. Jackson shrugged, the humiliation from yesterday still raw. "A little. Thanks for stepping in. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't shown up." Christopher leaned against the counter, his expression serious. "You would have stood tall eventually. You're stronger than you think, Jackson. But I'm glad I was there." Their eyes met, and for a moment the secrecy felt less suffocating. They shared a quiet breakfast, conversation drifting to safer topics. Jackson's latest project at work, Christopher's upcoming budget meeting. Yet underneath, the tension lingered like an uninvited guest. Later that week, Jackson drove to his parents' suburban home in Naperville, the familiar route stirring old anxieties. His mother greeted him with a hug, but the conversation quickly turned pointed. "Your cousin mentioned seeing you downtown with some older man," she said over dinner, her voice careful but laced with concern. "Is there something you want to tell us, honey?" Jackson froze, fork midway to his mouth. His father cleared his throat, eyes on his plate. "We love you, son, but this lifestyle, it's not what we raised you for." The words hit like the officer's mockery all over again. Jackson pushed back from the table, voice steady despite the knot in his chest. "It's not a lifestyle, Dad. It's who I am. And the man you're talking about, he's important to me." The dinner ended in awkward silence, his mother offering a week, "We just want you happy." But Jackson left feeling more alone than ever. Driving back to the city, he called Christopher, the voice on the other end a lifeline. "They'll come around," Christopher said softly. "Mine never did, but I found my own family." Christopher's own family story unfolded that weekend during a rare day off. They hiked a quiet trail in the Indiana dunes, away from prying eyes, the lake breeze cooling their skin. Christopher shared how his conservative upbringing in a small Illinois town had forced him to bury his truth for decades. "I married young to fit the mold," he admitted, voice low as they sat on a driftwood log. "Divorced after 2 years when I couldn't pretend anymore. The force became my family instead." Jackson listened, reaching for his hand once they were hidden by trees. "You don't have to pretend with me." Their fingers intertwined, a simple act that felt revolutionary. Back at the condo, they cooked dinner together, laughter easing the day's heaviness. Christopher taught Jackson an old family recipe, their shoulders brushing in the small kitchen, and for those hours the world outside faded. But Monday brought reality crashing back. At work, Jackson overheard colleagues whispering about that commissioner who always shows up at gay events. Probably just politics. The words stung, mirroring his parents' doubts. That evening, Christopher noticed the cloud over Jackson's face and pulled him close on the couch. "Talk to me." Jackson poured it out, the family dinner, the office gossip, the constant fear of exposure. Christopher's jaw tightened. "I hate that my position puts this pressure on you. Maybe it's time Jackson stopped him with a gentle kiss on the cheek. "No. Your job saves lives. I won't ask you to risk it." Yet inside, Jackson wrestled with the growing ache. How long could love survive in the shadows? As weeks passed, their bond deepened through small acts. Christopher leaving encouraging notes in Jackson's bag. Jackson surprising him with tickets to a quiet jazz show. The emotional connection strengthened them, but the external pressures mounted, setting the stage for cracks neither could yet see. Jackson began journaling his thoughts late at night, pages filling with questions about identity and belonging. While Christopher reviewed department reports with a heavier heart, the image of Jackson's tear-streaked face a constant reminder of what was at stake. Months slipped by, and autumn painted Chicago in fiery hues. Jackson and Christopher's routine had settled into a careful rhythm. Secret dinners, weekend escapes to Michigan cabins where they could be themselves. But the misunderstanding that had been brewing finally surfaced one crisp October evening. Jackson arrived at the condo after a long day, only to find Christopher on the phone, voice low and tense. "Yes, the event is important. I'll be there alone." Hanging up, Christopher turned with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Annual police gala. Duty calls. Jackson felt the familiar twist of exclusion. Alone again. "I get it, but it hurts." Christopher sighed, running a hand through his hair. "You know why. One photo, one rumor, and everything unravels." The argument escalated, voices rising for the first time. Jackson accused him of prioritizing career over them. Christopher countered that he was protecting their future. They went to bed in separate rooms, the silence heavier than any words. The next day at work, Jackson confided in his closest friend, Marcus, a straight coworker he'd known since college. "I just don't know how much longer I can do the hidden thing," Jackson admitted over lunch. Marcus nodded sympathetically. "Man, that sounds rough. This commander guy, he's the one, right?" Jackson nodded, trusting the friendship that had weathered his coming out. But later that week, Marcus's girlfriend mentioned the conversation casually at a group hangout, and whispers spread. Jackson confronted Marcus, hurt flashing in his eyes. "You promised." Marcus looked guilty. "I thought it would stay between us." "Sorry, dude." The betrayal cut deep, amplifying Jackson's internal storm. He questioned everything, his judgment, his worth, even whether loving Christopher was worth the isolation. Christopher sensed the shift during their next stolen evening. Over Thai takeout, Jackson picked at his food. "I feel like I'm losing pieces of myself hiding like this." Christopher set down his fork, reaching across the table. "I see you struggling, and it kills me. Remember why we started this, because what we have is real." They talked late into the night, unpacking layers of doubt. Jackson shared his journal entries, raw thoughts about belonging in a straight world. Christopher opened up about his own past isolation, the nights he'd questioned if happiness was possible for men like them. The conversation mended the rift, but the misunderstanding had exposed vulnerabilities. As winter approached, Jackson threw himself into volunteering at a local LGBTQ center, finding purpose in mentoring younger guys facing similar prejudice. Christopher attended quietly from afar, proud yet restrained. Their love grew quieter, more intentional. Notes turned to voice messages, embraces lingered longer when safe. Yet the internal conflict simmered, each man wrestling with the cost of their choices, the decisions ahead looming like shadows on the horizon. Winter brought blizzards and unexpected storms of another kind. Christopher's department faced scrutiny after a high-profile case involving bias complaints, and internal pressure mounted for him to maintain a traditional image. At a closed-door meeting, a deputy pulled him aside. "Commissioner, rumors are floating. Keep it clean." Christopher's stomach knotted, knowing the rumors circled back to Jackson. That night, he arrived home tense, the weight of his badge heavier than ever. Jackson noticed immediately. "Work." Christopher nodded, pulling him into an embrace. "They're circling. One wrong move." The betrayal from Marcus earlier had already strained Jackson's trust in others, and now this career risk amplified everything. The breaking point came during a holiday party at Jackson's office. Marcus showed up with his girlfriend, the atmosphere light until she let slip details about the commissioner boyfriend. Colleagues stared. Jackson felt exposed, heart racing. He left early, texting Christopher in panic. They met at the condo where Christopher paced the living room. "This is my fault. I should have been more careful." Jackson shook his head. "No, it's the world. But I can't keep pretending forever." The conversation turned to sacrifice. Christopher admitted he might need to step back from public duties if things escalated. Jackson protested, tears welling. "Your career is part of who you are." They held each other through the night, the decision hanging unspoken. Christopher's internal crisis deepened. Years of service versus the man who made him feel alive. Jackson, meanwhile, confronted his own growth, realizing hiding had stunted him more than he admitted. As snow blanketed the city, they navigated the fallout. Christopher attended a public event solo, smiling for cameras while his mind wandered to Jackson waiting at home. Jackson channeled energy into a new project at the center, organizing workshops on identity and resilience. Friendship circles shifted. Marcus reached out with a genuine apology, but trust took time to rebuild. Through it all, their bond strengthened in quiet ways. Christopher cooking Jackson's favorite meals after long shifts, Jackson leaving playlists that spoke what words couldn't. Yet the career risk loomed, forcing Christopher to question every choice. One evening, staring at his reflection in the bathroom mirror, he whispered to himself, "Is this the life I want for him?" The question lingered, pushing both toward turning points they couldn't ignore. The emotional toll was real, each misunderstanding and external threat carving deeper paths toward maturity, even as the path forward remained uncertain. Spring thawed the city, but tensions peaked when an anonymous tip reached the mayor's office about Christopher's personal life. An internal review loomed, and Christopher faced the hardest decision yet. "I can't let this drag you down," he told Jackson one rainy afternoon, voice steady despite the pain. "Maybe we need space while I handle this." Jackson felt the floor drop. Space? After everything. The separation period began, weeks of minimal contact that tested them both. Jackson threw himself into therapy sessions at the center, confronting childhood wounds from his family's rejection and the park incident that started it all. He journaled furiously, realizing his growth depended on standing alone first. Christopher, meanwhile, navigated the review with quiet dignity, refusing to deny his truth when pressed privately. Colleagues who once respected him now eyed him warily, but a few allies emerged, fellow officers who had faced their own biases. The sacrifice was immense. He considered resigning to protect Jackson, drafting letters he never sent. Late nights alone, he replayed their moments, the laughter, the support, questioning if love required such cost. Jackson reached out once, a simple text, "I miss us, but I understand." The words fueled Christopher's resolve. During this time, old friendships resurfaced. Christopher reconnected with a college buddy who had come out years ago, gaining perspective on living openly. The separation forced awakening. Jackson volunteered full-time at the center, mentoring a teen facing similar mockery, seeing his younger self in the boy's eyes. The experience crystallized his purpose, helping others navigate the very struggles that had defined him. Christopher attended a national conference on police reform, speaking subtly about inclusivity, planting seeds for change without naming his personal stake. The distance, though painful, brought clarity. Each man grew independently, decisions rooted in self-worth rather than fear. When Christopher's review cleared without major fallout, thanks to his spotless record and quiet advocacy, the first call he made was to Jackson. "Can we talk?" The meeting at their favorite cafe marked the turning point, emotions raw but eyes clearer. Sacrifice had forged strength, betrayal and doubt giving way to deeper understanding. As they walked along the lakefront afterward, shoulders brushing, both knew the journey had reshaped them in ways they never expected. Summer returned to Chicago with long days and renewed hope. Christopher and Jackson reunited fully, the separation having stripped away illusions. They sat on the condo balcony one warm evening, city humming below, hands linked openly for the first time in their space. "I came out to the department leadership," Christopher said quietly. "Not a press conference, but enough to breathe." Jackson squeezed his hand, pride swelling. "And I told my parents the truth, no more half answers. They didn't fully get it, but they're trying." The growth was evident in small shifts. Jackson led workshops with confidence. Christopher advocated for department training on LGBTQ issues. Their love, once shadowed, now carried the light of mutual respect. A weekend trip to the dunes sealed their progress. Walking the same trail where confessions began, they stopped at the driftwood log. Christopher turned to Jackson, eyes steady. "I choose us. Every day, no more hiding what matters." Jackson smiled, pulling him into an embrace under the bright sun, the kind of moment that healed old wounds. Friends like a reformed Marcus joined barbecues. Family visits grew less tense, and the world, while imperfect, felt navigable. The emotional journey had transformed them. Jackson from a crying teen in a park to a man grounded in purpose. Christopher from a guarded commander to one who led with heart. Their story wasn't about perfection, but the courage to choose love amid consequences. The quiet triumphs in everyday decisions. As autumn approached again, they stood together at the center's annual gala, Christopher's arm around Jackson's waist in front of colleagues and family. No more shadows. The sacrifices had led to awakening, the misunderstandings to unbreakable trust. In the end, their bond proved that facing prejudice head-on built something lasting. Yet as they watched the sunset over the lake, Jackson wondered aloud if everyone could find such strength. Their laughter mingled with the waves, a testament to growth earned through every tear and choice. True or false? Hiding who you truly love is the only way to survive in a world still full of prejudice.